When Christians in the early years of the church's existence, or even hundreds of years later in the United States, found themselves in bondage, how were they supposed to act? Paul gave Timothy the following instructions in 1 Timothy 6 verses 1 and 2. Let as many servants as are under the yoke count their own masters worthy of all honor, that the name of God and his doctrine be not blasphemed. And they that have believing masters, let them not despise them because they are brethren, but rather do them service because they are faithful and beloved, partakers of the benefit. These things teach and exhort. Peter told the early Christians who were slaves in 1 Peter 2 and verse 18, Servants, be subject to your masters with all fear, not only to the good and gentle, but also to the froward. The servant or slave was to be subject to his master with all fear. The Greek for be subject means to array or arrange or to rank under. The word masters is from the Greek word where we get our English word despot. The word in the Greek and also in the English means an absolute owner. Whether the slave had been captured in a battle or had become a bondservant because of indebtedness, he or she was owned and was expected to render obedience to their master. Of course, the masters, if they were Christians, were to treat their servants fairly. If they did not, they needed to remember that they had a master in heaven, and with him there is no respect of persons, Ephesians 6 verses 5 through 9. The servants were to be subject to their masters, not only to the good and the gentle, but also, as the text says, to the froward. If masters treated their servants with respect and paid them honest wages, they would be foolish not to obey their masters. But what if the masters were harsh or ugly-spirited and mean? Well, Christians were told that they were to obey them too. The word froward in the King James Version is from a word that means crooked. It is in reference to the subjection that a Christian must render even to a crooked and harsh master. This is thanksworthy if a man or a conscience toward God endures grief, suffering wrongly, as we read in 1 Peter 2 and verse 19. And no one likes to be mistreated, but there have been many times in the history of New Testament Christianity when Christians had to endure grief. And when they do, Peter says it is thankworthy. The word thankworthy is a word that is very similar to our word grace. Peter was simply saying that it did not take much courage and patience to obey a good and gentle master, but obeying a mean and stubborn master was service above and beyond the call of duty. Because of Christians' relationship to Christ, they were motivated to behave in a more honorable way than were the people of the world. Now, Christians today know that this life is not the only life. They act differently from others because they know they have a reward awaiting them in heaven. They will endure grief because their conscience toward God must be pure and undefiled. And Christians through the ages have often suffered wrongfully because of their desire to show their love for God and His Word. Friends, no New Testament passage encourages or endorses the act of slavery. But the Word of God does regulate slavery. The regulations are fairly simple and plain. Servants must obey their masters from the heart. The masters must treat them as equals, never threatening, never abusing them, simply because they are subject to Him. But please remember, as we noted at the end of our lesson yesterday, everywhere that the gospel has gone, slavery has disappeared. The Bible's teaching has simply destroyed slavery in all of those countries where men and women have obeyed it. Slavery is an abominable institution, and the gospel alone has the remedy for it. Friends, we thank you for joining us for our program today. Please consider these things that we have discussed and have a blessed day.